Hello, everybody. This will be our 8th episode of Birddogs, Bourbon, and the Good Life. We're here today with Ethan and Kat Pippitt from Standing Stone Kennels. They are a fantastic dog training operation, as well as a GSP German Shorthair Pointer breeders. I've known Kat and Ethan for quite a while, and they help us with some of our breeding opportunities as well. Ethan, Kat, you want to introduce yourself just for a sec?
Absolutely. I'm Ethan Pippitt with Standing Stone Kennels.
And I'm his wife, Kat Pippitt. We run Standing Stone Kennels. Like Steven said, it's a breeding and training program. We breed specifically German Shorthair Pointers, but we do train all dogs specifically as family-oriented hunting companions.
Okay. So we're going to get back to them, but as always, the name of the podcast is Birddogs, Bourbon, and the Good Life. And the bourbon that Ethan and I are trying tonight, Kat doesn't appreciate bourbon like Ethan and I do, is Barrel Bourbon. This bourbon is cast strength. It is batch 29. It's bottle 19,658, so it's not that special. 6-year-old. It is a 15.88 proof bourbon. I'm going to tell you this. It's pretty good. I will tell you this. If you drink it neat, it's warm. It's going to come get you. What do you think, Ethan?
It'll light you up.
Yes, it will. It's definitely there. It's got a fantastic flavor. Drinking it on ice will take away some of that bite. I enjoyed it. I enjoy it quite a bit. We have Kat likes mojitos, so
I'm not a bourbon fan.
You're not a bourbon fan. My wife likes bourbon quite a bit. It's just one of those things that I think we get into. But this, I always try to look at the back of it and see if there's anything special on here that it says. But this one doesn't give me any real background for the most part. But it is a really good bourbon.
Well, I think the kicker with that barreled company and their claim to fame essentially is that every bottling is essentially single barrels, where they don't do the small batches and they don't do it's all single barrel type things, which is
really?
where barrel comes from.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so they have a bunch of different flavors, and that's what your different labels come from. I don't know them all. I know that they have a lot of them, but they're all supposed to be, I believe, single barrel type of situations.
Yeah, like I was telling you before the podcast, they had 4 or 5 different barrels, bourbons up there, and I picked the darkest possible coloring that I could find because I like the more bold flavors. They had some signature ones where certain VPs of the company signed the bottles.
Oh, cool.
But that really didn't interest me as much as the dark color of the bourbon, because historically for me, that comes out with a better flavor for what I'm looking for. I like really dark bourbons most of the time. So we're going to roll into the conversation with Ethan and Kat about their business. I'm going to give them a minute to kind of let you guys know kind of how their business operates and everything else. And then I'm going to start asking them crazy questions.
Oh, well, we have been in business, it would be, I guess this year, 10 years. Been training dogs professionally for 12, going on 13 years. Yep. And when we started together, we've basically been in business together the whole time. It wasn't something that she joined in after that I had started on my own or anything else. We started this together. And, it started with 6 kennel runs on a concrete slab that was kind of an old, like a foundation for an old little wood shop or something. The shop was gone. The slab was in the backyard, so we put some kennel runs on it, right? Yeah. Had experience working at another facility. As like I said, obviously trained professionally before that. But as that grew, we had a facility up within a year, and then about 5 years in, we went ahead and moved down into this area. The evolution of what we've been is we started training dogs and breeding short hairs, and have moved from just training and breeding into a drastically larger training program for people, basically. So we put as much, if not more, emphasis on the education of people that want to train their own dogs, and then try and help supply the things that we're using and we're recommending that they use. And that has kind of grown through creating YouTube videos, and then we have a basically private club you can sign up for to ask questions, get direct feedback on what's going right, what's going wrong within your own training sessions.
So one of the big things I really keyed on is, because I have people, because I train my own dogs, and I've had a lot of people out with me, and they've asked me to train their dogs, and my comment to them is, 95% of a dog's trainer's task isn't really training the dog, it's training the owner to understand the dog. Because dogs, they don't train themselves, so don't take this literally, but a lot of the dogs, if you get a good dog with good breeding, like people can get from you guys, these dogs are going to have a natural ability. We're just here to fine tune that ability, right? And we're here to hone that ability and help that dog grow with the ability. But a human being that's not trained to understand the dog will ruin that dog in a heartbeat. Is what I've found. I've known guys that have gotten well-trained dogs, and they don't keep that up, and then the dog isn't as good as they expect the dog to be, because it isn't as good as it was when it came from the trainer, because the people themselves weren't trained to understand that dog. Is that a right perception?
That's a huge part of it. So, yes, dogs have natural instincts, natural ability, and well-bred dogs, whether they're from us and they're a short hair, or they're another breed, or they're from another well-bred program, they need some exposure, they need some, honing of those skills, but they've got those natural instincts there. And then once they've been well-trained, that transition back to their owners is such a huge part of that training process, because if their owners don't continue and maintain what we've worked hard on for the last 3 or 4 months, that's just going to go all out the window. And that investment is not going to feel like it was worth it. So that transition is really important. And we take a considerable amount of time making sure that the owners are comfortable handling their dogs, utilizing the e-collars that we use in training, knowing all the cues that their dogs have learned, and handling them. And then obviously we're open to questions when they get home, if they're struggling with anything, having any issues, to help maintain that at home. But yeah, that's a huge part of it, is being able to read their dogs, maintain the training, feel comfortable asking their dogs to do what they've learned how to do.
It's the interesting thing. As a professional dog trainer, our job's easy. And I mean that as light as possible. I don't want to make light of the fact that training dogs is easy, because it's not always. But as a professional dog trainer, our job's pretty easy, because we have, first of all, full-time hours to commit to the development of the dog. 2, we aren't spending 24 hours a day with the dog like an average dog in a family situation, where you do have other obligations. You have work, you have tasks at home, you have things that you have to accomplish and do and get through. So there are time periods where it's like, all right, it's easier if you just are over here playing with whatever you're doing. I've got this to get to right now, or we've got to get out the door. I'm just things kind of slip through the cracks a little bit. And we have the opportunity to basically have structure through the entire process. So it's easy to step in and say, this is the way things are going to be, and then maintain that, day in and day out for an extended period of time. And it's we also have a blank slate. We have a dog that's ready to train. They have no understanding of what we are. Dogs are place and situationally oriented. So they come to a new place, it's a new environment, it's a new person, and they learn really quick, okay, my expectation is I have to do this and this and this and this with this person. They don't let me get away with this or this or this. So there is no predetermined understanding of what I can and can't do. This is the dog's idea, right? The dog doesn't know what they can and can't do with me. So I lay that down. It's very consistent, and they don't know any other situation. So as a professional dog trainer, having a dog come to you, being able to invest full-time hours, like imagine at home trying to train your own dog. If you had 40 hours a week plus to put into just working your dogs, they'd be in a totally different situation than trying to do it in the evenings or the weekends or as a side job.
Oh yeah, a dog with the opportunity to engage with its trainer owner in a large time frame like you guys do is super, super beneficial. So with that being said, I dropped a little hint here about being able to purchase a dog from you guys. The one thing that I believe is true, that if I were to say, hey, Standing Stone Kennels, I would really like to have a puppy, I think I need to be patient. Is that right? So with that being said, could you elaborate on what I mean by that?
Yeah, so we do have a wait list on our litters, and that wait list fluctuates a little bit, but it's typically a year or two out. I can't count my puppies before they're born, of course.
Amen.
You never know if you're going to have a litter, if the female's going to take, or if she's going to have 10 puppies or 2 puppies. So that wait list is variable, and things happen for people that put deposits down. Their husband gets deployed, they're building a house, they're having a new baby, something happens, and they have to wait on getting a puppy. So, we play musical chairs with that wait list, shall we say, sometimes.
Which is fair. That's
life
part of
happens, right?
Yeah, and obviously you cannot count your chickens before the eggs hatch, right?
For sure.
So one thing I can say is so I've dealt with a lot of guides you guide quite a bit, but what I meant to say was I've dealt with a lot of dog trainers in my life. And I've watched you guys on YouTube. I've watched pretty much every little channel you guys have. We're going to get into that here in a little bit. But the one thing that keeps kind of coming back in my mind is, in my opinion, you guys are the next generation of dog trainers. You guys are able to relate to all this, excuse the phrase, I'll probably say something that offends somebody, but this next generation of people, you guys are able to communicate, unlike me. And so this is the story I'm trying to get to, is so Ethan and Kat help my dog training and my breeding. And so when I need another dog because we guide hunts, I go to Ethan and Kat, I tell them the dog I want to breed, and they look at all the critical things, and I'm not going to get into that. I'll let them get into that here in a minute. They look at all the critical things that need to happen and bloodlines and all this stuff, way more technical than a guy like me even thinks about. And then they say, okay, this is the best dog for you to breed with. And then ultimately, I only want 1 or 2 dogs out of this litter. And so then I try to sell these dogs, and it doesn't work out well. So I'm the old rough, tough, grumbly guy on the phone. This is how it is. And they always help me sell these dogs, and they can get these puppies sold in a fraction of the time that I do. So what I mean by that is you guys have a fantastic personality to deal with anyone out there. And that's why I say you're the next generation of dog trainers. You guys are stepping it up. You guys are going out to the social media platforms. You're going out to the internet. You guys are sharing your knowledge for free on YouTube. And matter of fact, you guys' YouTube training things are just phenomenal. So with that being said, with my statement of you're the next generation of dog trainer, do you guys see yourselves going that way? Because I do.
I mean, I think in the early stages of the growth of our business, and we've fallen from this a little bit, and I'm borderline ashamed of it, but it's a pretty high standard that we set. When we started, my voicemail on my phone said, "This is Ethan with Standing Stone Kennels." So wait. Any of my buddies listen. This is Ethan with Standing Stone Kennels. I need to sound excited because I want you to think that I'm excited to talk to you, because I am.
Yes.
But this is Ethan with Standing Stone Kennels. Leave me a message and I'll call you back immediately. And that was something I lived by for about 5 years.
Yeah.
And I think that the average person waited less than 30 minutes to get a phone call from me 7 days a week, 365. I mean, that is what I did to try and grow, because I knew that the number one complaint that people got was, I can't get a hold of people. They don't call me back.
I send an email and
They don't send
forever to get a response.
They don't email me back. They don't call me back. They don't whatever. And I went, if we're going to grow in this business, communication is key. Yeah, communication is key.
Yeah.
So we attacked that as hard as we possibly could to try and stay on top of it. And to this day, we still do, but it's drastically more difficult because the influx of,
volume.
We've been fortunate enough, but the volume is extreme. I mean, I may sit down and do a podcast like this with you and have 14 voicemails to call back. Well, it takes me more than 30 minutes to accomplish.
Well, this podcast is going to be about 2 hours, and I know I asked you guys to shut your phones off.
Yeah.
So everybody, understand.
But I'm just saying, it's one of those things that we live by and do our best today. And we've tried to grow that, like you're mentioning, through the different social platforms and reaching. I would say metrics state our average viewer is a 27 to 35-year-old male.
See, I think that's where I'm challenged, right? Because I'm a grumpy old guy, people call me up on the phone, and I'm unfortunately probably not the most pleasant voice to hear sometimes. I answer the phone like, "Hey, yeah, what do you need?" And
then they're like, "Did I get a hold of
the
breeder that I was trying to get a hold of?" Like,
Yeah.
I hate that when I call somebody and I'm calling a plumber, or I'm, "Oh, hi, Wea."
Way.
Or someone, and I call and they're like, "Hello?" And I'm like, "Did I just call the wrong number? Did I get a hold of the plumber that I was trying to call, or is just some random person?" And then I'm like, "Is this so-and-so with electric heat or whatever?" And they're like, "Oh, yeah. And I'm like, "Oh, thank God."
So my buddy has a phrase, and we're in the same age bracket, that we're the rude and hurtful generation, that we answer the phone or we talk, and we just talk. We don't really think about the courtesies, right?
There's something to be said about that, though.
Yeah.
I mean, and we move right into brutally honest conversations here. This is something that I enjoy.
Ethan's really good at those brutally honest comments.
Let's face it, the folks of today are fairly
easily
soft,
offended.
easily offended,
Yes.
whatever. It's sometimes a point-blank conversation, though it may seem gruff and whatever else, is drastically more efficient, drastically more beneficial.
Honest.
Yes.
And honest. And that's it. I mean, honesty, whether it's gruff and grumble or whatever, however it is, just sometimes the truth hurts.
Yeah. In the other, telling a little story on my wife and I. So this last litter we worked with you guys to produce. I had some people call me, and they were like, "Hey, I'm looking for a dog." And I'm like, "Okay, what are you looking for?" And we start walking through it. And by the time I'm done with the conversation, I've talked these people out of buying the dog.
Yeah.
And my wife is like, "Are you trying to sell the dogs or not?" I'm like, this person didn't know what they were getting into.
Yeah,
And
you got to find the right people.
that's what you need to do. That's the thing that, as a breeder and as a person that's looking for a puppy, you need to be honest with them with what this puppy is going to be and what it's going to take and the time and the energy that it's going to require, because otherwise the people aren't going to be happy in the end, and they're either going to want to return the puppy, or the puppy's going to end up in a shelter or passed around or whatever, or the puppy's going to get neglected because it's too much. Yeah. And they're like, "I'm going to crate it all the time, or I'm just going to throw it in the backyard to entertain itself." So that is truly the right thing to do.
Well, I had a 74-year-old guy call me up, and he goes, I was like, "So what are you looking for? Why are you looking for the dog?" So on and so forth. And he goes, I'm 74 years old. I've always gone out hunting with my buddies. They've always had the bird dogs, and I think it's my turn. And I'm like, okay, what are you doing? I was like, have you ever owned a bird dog before? And he's like, no, I've never owned a bird dog. And I'm like, you're 74? He goes, yeah. I was like, and you want a German short hair? And he goes, yeah, I think I want a German short hair. I've heard they're really great. I've seen them in the field and everything else. I was like, so how much time are you going to dedicate to this dog? How much training time are you going to do with this dog? I think I'll work with it a couple times a week. And I'm like, hold on, where are you going to keep this dog? Are you going to keep the dog in the house with you, or are you going to put it in the kennel outside? Oh, no, I will not have a dog in the house. And I'm like, okay, you need to go get a lab. Because this dog's going to be too high maintenance. German short hair is going to run you crazy. I've seen those little memes where it shows German short hair as, what are those, raptors?
Velociraptors.
Yeah, velociraptors. And that's exactly what I'm thinking. I'm like, one guy asked me, he goes, so when does a German short hair slow down? I was like, 5 minutes before it dies. It goes from the time it's born until the time it dies, and it doesn't slow down. And so I talked that guy out of it. And my wife, she gave me, she was like, you've talked like 2 or 3 people out of getting a dog. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't want the dogs to go somewhere they shouldn't.
100%.
And you guys really stepped up and helped us out, because I think we had 6 dogs left to move. And I called you guys up and I was like, I don't know what to do. I keep pissing everybody off. And then within, I think it was 2 weeks, wasn't it, honey? So it was within 2 weeks, and you guys had all the dogs gone for us. And that was amazing.
And that's that volume thing again. So we've worked really hard to create a name for ourselves, become fairly well known through so many different channels. Our YouTube channel, we have a podcast, the social medias of Facebook and Instagram. But also, like our website, I've always felt like having a very easy to navigate website so people can easily contact us, get information is really beneficial, because in the dog world, especially back 10 years ago when we started our own business, it was a whole bunch of old bird dogs, bird dog owners, and they didn't necessarily have technology under their belt. So I was like, if we want to be competitive, I think that that's a really great way to start. And then getting a hold of people and being easy to communicate with. And that has just grown and blossomed to the point where it's hard to get back to all of the communications, whether it's a phone call, an email, a text message, Facebook and Instagram messages. It gets to be a lot, but that allows us to help people that, breed to our dogs and find good homes for those puppies. Yes. The right homes for those puppies, but we have a lot of people that contact us. That's why we have a longer wait list. But then when opportunities arise where there's additional puppies that are out of a stud like Vex or something that we can say, hey, you feel like you'd be a good fit. You hunt, you have a family, you're a young person, you understand the time commitment and energy this is going to take. I don't have a puppy for you within the next 2 years. But Steven does, and it's a litter out of our mail. I want to get you his information. Yep. And then I pass the baton to you, and then hope that you can take it from there.
As long as I don't drop the ball. So one of the things that has been sticking in my mind since you guys said your, and I think this is an interesting conversation. So you said you want to stand out. How you guys are going to stand out as you guys grow your business. So, Ethan, Mr. Pink Shotgun.
Oh, yeah.
So, you stood out via the Pink Shotgun. And what I want to know is, I know the audience, number one, he has a YouTube channel, The Guy with the Pink Shotgun. So, go check it out. It's entertaining. So tell us why you decided to start going to these mostly man-oriented dog trials
Yeah.
with a pink shotgun. And keep in mind, he's going to a thing where most of these guys are my age or older, and a guy walking around with a pink shotgun, we're going to be thinking some things. So explain why you did that pink shotgun and what drove you to do that specific aspect.
Oh, 100%. So, I mean, I'm not very old. And yeah, I just mentioned we've been in business 10 years, right? So I'm in my early 20s at best, a kid, basically walking around a old man-dominated industry. And I look like a kid. And people are like, that kid can't do anything, or can that kid do anything, or we don't pay any attention to that kid. And I do well at events, and better now than even I did at that point in time, but I had all the try in the world. And I would go with 2 or 3 or 4 dogs and pass 100%, or, you know, maybe fail one time out of. At AKC events, you've got, excuse me, a double test, which means one club holds an event Saturday and Sunday. Then you have a single, which would be one club holds a single event on a Saturday or a Sunday, or it could be any day of the week, but they're typically on the weekend. And then you have what's considered a double-double, and that's 2 clubs, because you can't have competing. AKC regulates this to the extent you can't have 2 clubs competing with each other
within a certain distance.
So they come together at the same location, which is the local AKC event, which is kind of down by
this
the lake.
This coming weekend at
it is
Yoder.
this weekend. Yep.
So
it's
Irish
considered.
Creek Outfitters has that, I think.
It's their property. Absolutely. Yep. So it's considered a double-double. And it's the Sunflower Short Hair Club with the
Southern Kansas Brittany Club.
So they come together at the same event, and they host 2 doubles, and it becomes a double-double, meaning you have 4 opportunities.
2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday.
To run the test. Now, how the levels are, you got junior, senior, master, okay? You have to pass 4 junior, 5 senior, and 6 master attempts, unless you have the preceding title and it knocks one of those passes off. So you 4 junior, 4 senior, 5 master. Anyhow, you have to go to multiple events unless your dog's really, really good, or your handler's even better, because there is a handler aspect to a well-trained dog.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I would go and do well. And I'm like, nobody calls me. Nobody's calling me to have. I see other pros here, and they're stacked with dogs, and I'm like scrambling to pull these extra dogs in. How can I stand out? Like, I've got this. You have to carry a break open shotgun. You don't shoot your own birds. Gun doesn't even have to work. You can, in fact, carry a wooden cutout or a dummy gun. You just have to carry something so that you can mount and swing on the birds. What this does to the handlers prevents them from essentially continuing to handle or intimidate their dog that's on point. Like, I'm standing watching you. Don't you mess up.
I see.
But when your back's turned to the dog.
And it tries to create a more realistic
situation.
Hunting scenario, truly.
Yeah.
But.
I didn't know that.
You have to carry a gun in the master level only.
And senior.
Master level only.
Oh, you blank pistol.
Yep,
Yeah.
blank. Everything is blanks at the from a handler standpoint. So at the master level, which is what I primarily run my dogs at, I believe there's a lot of, that's our end goal, first of all, and there's a lot of issues that can be developed through, we refer to it as test smart dogs. They know we're at this event, there's people, there's horses, there's rigmarole, and I can't wear an e-collar. I can get away with different things.
Because there's no handling on the grounds.
Yep.
No training on the grounds.
No training on the grounds. Yep. So if you get caught trying to do things that are trained, you can handle your dog by,
Verbally,
hollering them, healing them away or whatever. But if you try and do anything else that seems training related, you get in trouble or can be removed or disqualified completely.
That seems different.
No training on the grounds. So dogs will understand what the level and what the expectation is, and if you don't have a good enough handle, dogs become test smart. They learn I can get away with anything here, and then you go back to training. They're perfect. They go to the test day. They fail instantly, and it's a difficult game.
It's a battle.
Yep. So I stay out of tests until we're to the level. which essentially puts you in less opportunity for puppies to learn what they can get away with because you have less handle. And then at the senior level, you're kind of in the middle range where there's still a lot of things that can be gotten away with. And comparatively to master, there's a lot of stuff that can happen, that I look at it as a really good money game for AKC, which is part of the thing, right? But
it's a business for
the
sure.
Junior hunter is a fun level to get people involved. Just about anybody's dog with a little bit of exposure, like we were talking before, can go into junior hunter and do well. Then you get to the senior level, and it's a step up, but the things that are allowed there, I think, set you back for being prepared for the master level and make it more difficult because you can break at shot. So in the junior level, you can break when the bird goes. At senior level, you can break at shot. And at master level, you have to stand steady to wing, shot, and fall. So basically, lock up on point, flush the bird, shoot the bird, wait to be sent by your handler to go pick the bird up. That's the master level. Now, if you're trained and understand in these tests you can break at shot, now you want to do that, right? So it almost sets you back a little bit, which is why we've found that it's most effective just to skip to the end, which you can do. So at these events, doing well, want to stand out. I've got my, it's a Steven Arms. That was the original. Bought in a pawn shop. Cost me $65, I think.
It wasn't very expensive. It was definitely under $100.
It
and
worked.
That was back in the day when $100 meant a lot.
A lot, yeah. I scraped together, right? So it was like, can we splurge on this shotgun that we need?
We've been using our other shotgun, which was a shotgun that you had basically, I don't know what.
The only shotgun I owned was, I won it. It was it was given to me. I guess I
sponsored whatever from a youth turkey hunt.
So this would be home to the folks in Kansas here, the Kansas Governor's One-Shot Turkey Hunt.
Yeah.
So I was a scholarship winner of that, and I wrote my essay, got selected, went there, and it's a really, really cool thing. I have tried to kind of, it always falls in a time period, but as we adjust, it is on my radar, I'm on their list. I want to be a guide to give back to something that was so impactful for me in my youth. I wrote an essay, got selected, got to go there, a fully guided turkey hunt. I was outfitted with clothing and boots. I got a lifetime hunting license, the state of Kansas. I got a shotgun. My dad was brought with me. The whole trip was paid for. It was really, really, really cool. And I mean, one of the coolest things it's one of those things that you remember, right? And I don't know if you want to do...
Just keep talking.
Okay. So it's one of those things that you remember, and I want to be able to, help provide that to somebody else under the age, in the stage where they can...
Makes an impact for them and
make
lights
an
a
impact
fire.
for them, yeah. So,
but we wore that shotgun out.
Yep. So I wore that shotgun out. It's the only one I had, shot it a lot. And I got this training gun. Well, the thing's a single shot, Steven Arms. The stock's short on it a little bit. I don't really know why, but it also shot about 8 to 10 inches low if you were to, because it had a real high crown, and then the barrel, it kind of like swooped down. It was kind of a weird deal. So you had to shoot it instinctively. If you try and sight down the barrel, you're going to miss every time. So you learn to shoot it instinctively. I shot that gun and became a horrible shot when it came to hunting season and shot a real gun. Couldn't hit anything.
Yeah.
Shooting over everything,
I
right?
bet so.
So,
but we painted that sucker pink.
I grabbed a can of spray paint from the old Cowpoke supply there in Norton, sprayed it baby pink, yep, and carried it, and became known at that point in time as the kid with the pink shotgun.
People would say, hey, who's that kid with the pink shotgun? He just passed all his dogs. They didn't know who he was, but that was a way to refer to him, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's like, who's that guy in the orange hat?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, everybody's wearing an orange hat at these things. So how do you distinguish yourself?
How do you stand out in a crowd?
Yeah. Well, a pink shotgun will do that.
And I'm going to tell you what, I've seen the videos with the pink shotgun, and I asked myself for years, why does he have that pink shotgun? And then you guys had they also do I'm going to phrase it wrong. You ask, we answer.
Yawa, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, Yawa. And the title of the Yawa was something about the pink shotgun.
Yeah, well, why
And-
pink?
Yeah, and why pink? That's what it was. And I was like, okay,
I'm going to get my answer here.
I'm going to sit through this, and I'm going to, because honestly, you guys' Yawa sessions are really, really good.
Thank you.
A lot of the stuff you guys cover, I train my own dogs. A lot of the stuff I already know. Some of the stuff I pick up new information or a different way to deal with something. But I'm also really time restricted with all the things that I do. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to dedicate the time to listen to this. And I listened to it live, and I'm like, you know what? That really makes sense. That is a brilliant idea, especially knowing 10 years ago
Yeah.
what the mindset was, right?
Uh-huh.
Because that would have been my mindset. What is that kid doing? You know? Matter of fact, I'm one of those guys that just walk right over to you. Why the pink shotgun? You know? But
Well, it's funny you say that. I tried to get rid of it.
really,
Yes. About 5 years ago.
we finally were like, we are getting...
When we moved down here, I wore the firing pin out in it, and I wasn't gonna get it fixed. Right? I mean,
It
that's
was
stupid.
not an expensive gun to begin
So
with.
like,
We're not
I want
doing
to
it.
get a real shotgun that is a good shotgun. I've got a little extra money saved up. I want to buy a good shotgun. I shoot a lot. Everything else.
That then you can take hunting and then be on. You're not trying to change your sights.
Just tired of
and-
missing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like take me 2-3 weeks of shooting to get back into the hunting season. So I bought a Beretta Silver Pigeon 686, most expensive shotgun I'd ever owned, and started
Pretty
shooting that.
wood.
Yep, pretty wood and everything else. Started shooting that in training. People are like, what happened to the pink gun? What happened to the pink gun? Carry that everywhere. What happened to the pink gun? What happened to the pink gun?
Giving him crap about it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I went and had my Beretta Cerakoted pink. And the Cerakote color, they've got a sense of humor down there. I don't know if you've ever looked at, you know what Cerakoting is? Like a ceramic coat. They
Yes.
do barrels.
Oh, yeah.
They don't like the wood because you have to bake it.
Yeah.
And the heat
Can
and the
dry
time
it out.
can end up cracking the wood.
Yeah.
So he told me that ahead of time. He's like, this may crack. I'm like, it's going to cost me like $800 to replace this stock if it doesn't. I said, so don't crack it.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
And he's been really great to work with.
Oh yeah, he's been absolutely fantastic. It's Ryan Cheney's his name. He's got, and I kind of talked him into this a little bit, but he's a competitive long-range shooter now. He had a bit of an accident, so he can't paint with his right hand. You know, he's essentially an artist and damaged his right arm really bad in an automobile accident. So now he's competitive, and he was doing it before, but now he's moved into that almost completely. But he's a competitive long-range shooter. Held it too far away from you. He's a competitive long-range shooter and a damn good one. But it's Ryan Cheney, ELR. He's got a YouTube channel, everything else. You should check it out. I mean, he goes out there and shoots at a mile like it's nothing. It's insane to watch. So, but he painted it pink for me. And Cerakote's colors, prison pink. That's so prison pink is
That's
the
the
name of the color on my shotgun. Well,
Of every shotgun now that is pink.
yes,
is prison pink.
it's prison pink, baby.
Prison pink.
You look at just go Cerakote's website, look at the colors. They're all funny.
Oh, that's funny.
It's funny. So that's it. And I will say the number one thing that people ask me is, what's up with the pink shotgun? I carry it everywhere I go hunting, training, testing, all of it now. I've got a pink shotgun everywhere I go, and that is, the proof's in the pudding, if you will. It is the first thing that gets asked. I step out of the truck with it, like, what's up with that pink shotgun?
But it's interesting because we'll go to other events and other shows and things in our niche, in our, outdoor bird hunting world, and people will see him without his pink shotgun just in every day, and they're like, you look familiar. I think I know you. Are you the guy with the pink gun? And he's like, yes. My name's Ethan, by the way, but that's how he gets known.
Speaking of which, number one, the pink shotgun is now basically a trademark of yours.
Uh-huh.
The other thing is you were talking about events you guys were at. So here recently, I did a little research, and I believe I'm correct that you guys were at Pheasant Fest as I think vendor or guests, or what were you guys doing there?
Yeah, so Pheasant Fest has been a non-thing for a while, and it got to be a thing again this year, which was awesome. It was great to go out again. And
mention what Pheasant Fest is for folks real quick.
So Pheasant Fest is basically the National Pheasant Forever banquet organization. They put on a big banquet. There's a whole bunch of vendors there showcasing outdoor equipment, new products, dog events. There's a whole bunch of breeders and organizations there. And it allows the public to come through, walk through, ask questions, see new items that are coming out, and then go to the banquet and do the whole banquet stuff, bidding on stuff. So we finally got to go again. Things had hopefully normalized and are going to stay that way. And we go there with DT Systems a lot of times, and we were there as guests of their booth, as well as we went to the banquet this year, which was the first time we actually got to go to the banquet. Typically, we're being pulled in a lot of different directions, and this time we got to say, nope, we're going to go to the banquet this year. So, and we were guests there of Dr. Jim.
Dr. J. Yeah, James Johnson, which is a huge. They're an independent contracted company that does advertising and recruitment essentially for the patron program. So you got the lifetime members, lifetime goal. No, it's a lifetime mentor, and then you got patron, then you have gold patron. Those are the three main lifetime Pheasants Forever memberships, and they have a really interesting thing going on with that. If it's something people, listeners are interested in, supporting at the national level. First of all, it's like upper 80 percentile of your donation goes back into Habitat, because it's always a thing, right? It's a non-for-profit. How much of my dollars is paying for the people that are running the deal? How much of my dollar is actually going toward the cause?
The Habitat.
Yeah. So don't quote me. It's high, but I think it's upper 80 cents on the dollar. Yeah. So 88 or 87 cents on the dollar is going back into Habitat projects. They're funding they're raising money for I think it's multiple millions of dollars. I don't think it's into the T category, but it's lots and lots of money. And they have an interesting thing. What he was explaining to me right now is they have backers for this fundraising campaign that they're backing basically 4-1. So you do the $1,000 lifetime membership. It turns into $5,000 in money towards Pheasants Forever. 80-something cents on the dollars going into Habitat.
Which is incredible. Then
they have the patron category, which is a $5,000 donation, and then the gold patron, I believe, is $25,000. No, $1,000, $10,000, $25,000 is the gold patron. Now, if you go through the magazine, they talk about different levels of sponsorship, and then there's like bigger companies that have donated hundreds of thousands and so on, and they have different precious metal categories for that. But it's definitely an interesting thing. So we are lifetime members of Pheasants Forever National, and we sat with Dr. J or James Johnson at his table this year, so we were guests there.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So back to DT Systems. Mm-hmm. So correct me if I'm wrong. I believe if someone wanted a DT system, they could get it from your website?
Yeah, so anything that we use in training that we can become dealers of, we have decided to do that and offer it on our website. It didn't start out that way. We used the same products for years and years and years, and then showed them in videos. We're using these products, that sort of thing. Not even putting any emphasis on it, just walking through the bird field, reloading launchers, using collars, grabbing stuff out of bird bags, and people would comment or message or email us, hey, what collar are you using? What launcher are you using? What blank pistol are you using? It was just incredible. And we'd be like, oh, we're using this. Here, you can go to DT Systems website and get it there. Or, oh, you can go to this website and get it there. And it just was like, we should send them to our website and we should put them on our website.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and
100%.
it was kind of like a light bulb went off. And we're like, I wonder what it would take to do that. And so we decided, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, maybe?
3 years ago.
3
Yeah,
years
this will
ago
be
now,
our third year running this.
to start offering some things. And it started out really small. It started with our Easy Leads, which we created, which helps dogs learn how to heel. It's a healing tool.
I'm going to interrupt you on that Easy Lead.
Uh-huh.
So the Easy Lead, just for people that don't know, is, and I'm going to totally destroy this explanation, but I've seen you guys use it on your YouTube channel. I've watched you guys demonstrate it, and so we all train dogs differently, right? And you guys, Easy Lead seems to be pretty phenomenal. And so I've had guys who've had problems, and I was like, go check out this episode, check out their Easy Lead, go get their Easy Lead. I think it's going to work for you. And these are people that don't really have any dog training experience. So when I tell them to do X, Y, and Z, they kind of look at me cross-eyed. And so I'm like, okay, just go watch this. They do a much better job of explaining this scenario than what I am. And that Easy Lead's the key. So I've had some friends go out and buy your Easy Lead. And they used it via the YouTube channel, like you guys showed. And they're like, it took 5 minutes. And the dog's doing what it's supposed to do. So this Easy Lead product that you guys offer, from everything I've heard, is pretty phenomenal. And I very seldom do I use the phrase phenomenal. The reason I say that is these people were not dog training people. And they were able to take between your video and your product and produce a dog that healed and a dog that did what it was supposed to do. Now, I hope I'm using the right product. The Easy Lead where you loop it over and it goes over the snout.
You flip it up over their muzzle.
Yep. So these people really struggled with heel. They struggled with controlling their dog. And this Easy Lead in your video really made this amazing. So sorry for interrupting the excellent where you were explaining that, but the Easy Lead is something that I would suggest anyone to go to your website, look into it, make sure you check out the YouTube channel, and I think you can go to YouTube, go into your stuff, and scroll down until you find Easy Lead to get that episode, because I don't remember what it is.
Yeah, we actually have an entire playlist. So if you go to our channel and you go to playlists, we have an entire playlist on healing that shows, I think we've got 11 or 12 specific videos that just show how to utilize the Easy Lead and progressions of using it to teach your dog to heel, to the point where they can heel off leash. So
the cool thing about YouTube that a lot of people don't understand or don't necessarily put into perspective is it is just a search engine, but every response you get back is a video. So if you're looking for something that's our video specific, you would just search Standing Stone Kennels, healing, place training, potty training, bird dog work, Easy Lead, whatever, and it'll bring up all of the videos related to that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I physically did not know that information.
Yeah.
That makes things a lot easier, because I know there's times that I'm like,
how do I find it?
I'm having this one little issue, and I remember seeing this on their channel, and I think this would work with this specific dog because this is dog X, Y, or Z, and it's got X, Y, or Z personality. And so I go to you guys' YouTube channel, and it takes me a while. I'm like,
oh, yeah.
And it's interesting because exactly what you're explaining, looking for that specific thing. But between titles, descriptions, tags, metadata, right, all of it's in there for search engine optimization. And YouTube is the search engine. So You search that, we have the tags of as many different phrases as we can think that apply toward that.
That people would be searching for to find a video like that. We
Up
try
to 500 characters. That's what it allows. So it's
amazing.
there.
It's 500 characters.
Well, you do 2 or 3 a week. You
Yeah.
know what's happening.
yeah.
So then the other aspect of it is that we broke all of our videos into playlists, or a majority of them into playlists.
Make them a little more easy to find and organized.
Yeah,
So
and
we have nail trimming, healing, and then puppy-specific training series.
and those series show individual personalities of different dogs, and that's kind of what we recommend. Somebody says, I've got a puppy, I'm trying to figure out how to train them. Well, we show 8 weeks to 12 months with like 7 different dogs. And we don't show every single day, every single training session, but we do show every single thing we taught them.
Milestones.
The first session that we taught it in. Then we have some, progress reports along the way. And it's different for every dog because every dog is different. And people ask those questions like, hey, this one you taught this first, and this dog you taught this first. Well, watch their personalities. They're different. And try and match the personality that you see out of your dog with the personality that you see in the series. Now, granted, it's best if you truly don't know anything and you're trying to learn and absorb all this information, watch all the series.
Oh, yeah.
And then go, okay, this one applies best to my dog's personality, and then follow that individual dog's journey. And that's going to kind of get you
As close as possible.
close as possible.
And this is the thing that a lot of people don't quite get and don't quite understand is you guys put on seminars, and to come to your face-to-face seminar costs X, whatever that is. I don't need to know. But you guys put on seminars to do the very thing that you do on YouTube for free.
Yeah.
And you're reaching out. What is your current YouTube audience?
I think like
132,000.
130.
I was about to say it's pretty big.
Yeah.
132,000 is pretty big. So you guys are providing free information for 132,000 people.
Plus the 69% that don't subscribe.
Yes.
Just throwing that
Yes.
out there, because
Yes,
that
there-
always happens.
There is a huge percentage of people that do not subscribe. Maybe it's the ding on their phone or whatever they don't want to listen to, but you're giving this free information out for a huge group of people. You guys are also entrepreneurs. You're a female entrepreneur with your husband, Ethan. So here's the driving question that I want to ask, and it's completely off subject of what we've been talking about, but I ask 2 things during every podcast because we are a hunting podcast. We like to talk about the good life, what makes life good for you, and things like that. And for me, I like to have a good laugh. So I always like to ask, number 1, what is your funniest hunting, fishing experience? And then the second one, what is your most memorable hunting, fishing experience? It can be either or, it doesn't matter. And I would honestly like both of you to give a different story.
Okay.
Ooh.
So let's work with funny first because I love to laugh.
You're gonna have to go first. I gotta think. Oh my gosh.
Funniest experience.
That's tough.
You should have given us this as homework, so I could
No,
have
no,
thought
no,
about
no,
it.
no.
No,
This-
this would have
this
been the
is-
one that I could have used homework on. I got to think about.
Okay,
He's done a
think
lot
about-
though too, so keep that in mind.
Well, just anything off the top of your head, the thing that sticks out. The
Oh, I got
thing-
one. Oh, I got a funny one.
Perfect.
So we're hunting in South Dakota, late season. There's snow on the ground, pretty heavy snow. We're with Jessica and Ryan, and so Jessica, she's our trainer.
Okay.
One of our trainers, and she, this is her first South Dakota wild pheasant hunting experience. So new to everything. She's having a great time, and we're hunting, and Ryan's dog Cooper goes on point, right there. And Jessica's like, he's pointing right here in front of me. And I say, kick it up. kick the pheasant up, right? Because they're buried in the snow, so they're holding like really, really tight. I'm like, kick it up, kick it up.
This seemed like preserve birds at this point because it just blizzarded and
they're just tucked in tight, trying to stay warm.
And people always think like that these weren't wild birds. I'm like, no, these are wild birds. I'm like, kick it up. She thought I said, pick it up. And she literally reached down into the snowbank and picked up this wild rooster and was holding it. And I'm like, well, now you've got a new pet. And we literally have a video of it because I was wearing a GoPro at the time. So I have video evidence of her picking up a wild rooster, not kicking it up to shoot it. And I'm like, well, now you got a little pet rooster here.
I'm surprised it didn't spur the heck out of her.
No, I know. It was
Did she grab it by the neck?
Uh-huh. Yeah, but like was shocked that whole thing went down the way it did. So
that's pretty funny.
I'm going to struggle with 100% funny stories. I'm not a good storyteller to begin with, but that
I don't think you're not a funny storyteller.
Well, I've got two, and they all revolve around the same hunting.
That was such a fun trip.
It was a very fun trip, but that sparked a memory. Basically, so we've got this spot up there, and it's called the Penco property, which is like most of the things are labeled off of who they were purchased from or, whatever. It's like the Penco property. Why do we call it Penco? Well, that's because Dave Penco owned it beforehand, So we get up there, and this is a surround and pound or whatever type of.
Yeah.
It's a small hunt. It takes like 45 minutes if you hunt the whole thing, and usually there's birds out the wazoo. It's like a mature shelter belt. For people that don't know shelter belt, that term, basically a tree row designed to provide shelter for the houses, and then it adds as a second for the fields, and then the game also utilize that. Deer, turkey, well, there's not many turkey depending where you're at up there, but they kind of become wind blocks, and that wind blocks for animals as well. So they hunker in these. Well, these mature shelter belts hold a ton of pheasants in that area. There's not a lot of cover once the crops are off. So it's one of those that you roll in there, and man, I hate to throw numbers because they sound unrealistic, but 400 or 500 birds will come out of this in the heyday times of being there. And so, and in some of the lesser years of going up to this Penco property, we might get 150, 200 birds. But I'm talking about not even a half mile of walking. So it's like birds going everywhere. Like, you have to, everybody's pep talk before we get there is, all right, so you know what a rooster looks like, right? Yep. You know what a hen looks like, right? You need to pick a bird, and it needs to be close to you. Do not empty your gun on a long shot. You need to be loaded, and you need to be ready. When one gets up in front of you, take your shot at a rooster. Make sure it's a rooster, and we'll do all right. And, if you take that time, I mean, there's a good chance that we could be limited for several people just on this short little walk here. And on that trip, one of the guys it was his first trip to South Dakota.
Is that Travis?
Yeah, Travis. He's a good shot. Does a lot of clay shooting, different stuff like that.
Grouse hunting.
I don't know how much he does a little bit of grouse hunting, but they do a lot of like trap, ski, sporting clay shooting. So he's a good shot. I stand him down on this point, and I'm like, all right, this is a pretty good spot from a blocking standpoint to be at. And I roll down in here, I get this guy, and it's usually like, here's the plan, okay. And then you drive quick, and everybody jumps out of the truck, and then you got to be ready. He stands there, proceeds to shoot his limit. He's done for the day. And he's like, this is South Dakota pheasant hunting? I'm like, well, it is for you today, buddy.
Yeah.
And we're standing there, and we're waiting, and we're waiting, and we're waiting, and we're waiting. And I'm like, what is and they're like coming across. I'm like, you got to come across this. And the birds are going, and they're blowing through this gap. We have a huge gap now.
Because we can't get up there because the snow is waist deep, and it's got that stupid crust on the top where you're trying to walk on top of it, and then you sink down to your waist, and then you have to get your next leg up enough, and then you just about get out, and then you kunk. It was very exhausting walking.
I'm laying it on thick when they get down. I'm like, what took you so long? You know, I mean, we lost all these birds this way and we did all this and what?
Yeah, we were lollygagging.
And then I end up having to walk back through that to go back to the truck. I'm like, okay, I understand now.
It wasn't as easy as it looked.
No, it definitely was not. But, you know, it was just a really cool experience because on that trip we got to take multiple people on their first real big pheasant hunts. And they were successful, and they got to see things that that same snowstorm. When we're driving North Penco, we're looking at another shelter belt. This one was
insane. That shelter belt,
and that was completely unproductive, but it was cool. It was
well, because that's all the birds blew out into that milo across the highway.
Yes, but there's 2 miles of tree rows, and these are like the typical shelter belt.
Yep.
Where it's on average, there's 7 rows of trees, or 7 rows of habitat, essentially. So you have some type of a bush, and then you have another type of a bush, and then you have a tree, which most of them they've put a lot of Russian olives up there. And I think they thought Russian olives are a great idea right up until they found out how invasive Russian olives are, and I don't think they utilize them anymore. But these are like 10, 12-year-old mature shelter belts. So row of Russian olives, and then another row of typically some form of cedar, and then another row of cedar. I don't know how many rows I'm up to, and then maybe
5.
a bush on the outside. But 5 to 7 rows of these different trees having varying height levels. And that is a portion of being able to block things. They also talk about in a field, scent moves, it's kind of similar to the way that sound moves. Now, the reason that I understand this is because my brother's actually an acoustician. Acoustician, yep. He's not an acoustical engineer, which would be something that more people understand acoustical engineers, or they've heard that term.
And they don't even understand it, but they're like, oh, I think I know what that means.
I get that. So
I was looking at you like you lost your mind and you made up a word.
Yep, acoustician. Okay, so the division of the two is basically you have an engineer is someone that actually designs acoustical equipment.
Yep.
An acoustician designs acoustical equipment in areas. So
utilizes the acoustical.
For example, an acoustician would design a stadium so that your eardrums don't blow out while you're staying there, and yet you can hear things at the 57th deck appropriately. And one of the companies that he worked, this is just a cool thing. Like,
yeah, it is.
I know so little about what he does that I have to like say yada yadas through most of his stories. You know, you get it. He's kind of smart, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So they developed this room that has a platform that you as a stadium owner or a whatever can sit here and go, okay, I'm on deck 5, row 67, whatever. What does it feel like when the crowd goes wild? When you feel the vibrations and you feel everything, like they built this room around this.
Like
so
a
this
virtual reality for
it's
that
insane,
seating.
right? So when he was in high school, he did a redesign program for, now I'm going to lose it, a movie theater. Name a popular movie theater.
AMC.
AMC might have been it.
Regal.
Something. But redesign basically so that wherever you're at in the movie theater, the sound is right. You know, and that's part of it that you don't think about. You know, they got speakers, they got a screen, we go sit down, it's noise, right? No, they have to, that's what all the wavy stuff on the walls are and all those things designed so that you can hear properly in every position without the theater. So that's what an acoustician
that job
does.
existed.
Right?
Yes.
Nope.
So, and he's, I like I say, I make the stories because I don't truly understand stuff. Like he got an opportunity to work with the military to figure out how to break the sound barrier without making any noise, which is not really what the situation was. But that's what I told everybody for years and years
funny.
Because it's impossible, right?
Yeah.
So but all of these things being said, I don't even know where I got.
Scent
I got lost.
goes through.
Right. So.
Keeping him on track.
I know this because of my acoustician brother. Basically, sound waves change as they go through different materials. So you have a sound wave. It looks like a sound wave, whatever. It hits sheetrock. It has to change to go through that.
So it loses energy.
It loses a little bit of energy, exactly. But once it's calculated itself to go through sheetrock, it can bounce through all the layers of sheetrock no problem because it's prepared for that. Now, if you change the next material that it has to go through, for example, some level of insulation, fiberglass, blow-in, whatever, it has to change again, loses more energy. Then you add a different type of material. It has to change again, loses more energy, and then all of a sudden you're out the wall, you don't have any sound left. That's how soundproof rooms are developed.
Good to know.
Basic. Yeah. Now, even to the extent of like 1/2-inch drywall is different 5/8-inch drywall. So separating things out to where it's a different material, different density, different things, you have changed and you get more soundproofing. The same thing happens with scent. For example, pheasants have to protect themselves from other predators like coyotes or whatever. If you have flat grass, CRP straight fields or whatever it is with no changes in elevation, the scent can blow all the way through the field with no issues because essentially it doesn't have any energy loss in the changes. Now you add these breakups. Those can be plum thickets. They can be these shelter belt rows. They can be, like down here we call them hedge rows, right? That's probably more common, just a tree row. Any type of breakup in that elevation of the material that's in the field, growing in the field, changes those scent and protects the creatures within it. So that's something that is thought of a lot on the property, which we see with bird dogs specifically. Like in our grass fields that we have set up for dog training, it's all pretty much one height for the most part.
Yeah.
Now, they are in the CRP programs, but the problem with a lot of those programs, if they're not, which this is a 20-plus year contract on the stuff that we've had access to for a few years, if they're not maintained properly, you end up with essentially a monoculture setup, right? Which is not how they're planted. It's not how they're put in. Something takes over. And in a lot of our grass, it's Indian grass. Mm-hmm. Indian grass, it's like wall-to-wall Indian grass in some of those areas, and it's continuing to grow out. Well, part of the, depending on what program you're in and all of those things, part of those can be interseeding as well as light disking, and most people in this area burn.
Yep.
Okay, burn's great, kills the overgrowth, allows for the potential of regrowth, but what regrows? The Indian stuff that's grass. There.
Yep.
You know, the stuff that's already taken over, where that light disking opens up the earth, breaks the soil, and I don't know if it's necessarily more work, but it's different work. It's some people don't have access to it. A burn team takes a few, depending on, like an 80 can burn in 20 or 30 minutes, maybe an hour.
Yeah.
If
and
you've
if you're
got
not
it done
careful,
right.
it can get to 60 and
everybody else's, right?
Else.
And that disking would take all day, maybe, or multiple days, depending on the size of your disc and the time you've got to invest in it. So, but that breakup of the soil allows for those forbs and the weeds and the different things to come back. Weeds attract bugs. Bugs are 70 to 80% of what baby chicks need.
Yep. As I heard it during a habitat training through Pheasants Forever, is bugs are super protein pills for chicks.
Yeah. And on top of it, people talk about moisture, right? Chicks need moisture, and drought conditions are the number one kill of chicks. Well, in droughts, there are no bugs. And bugs provide a majority of the hydration because they're a moist type of protein pill. So it's everything that a chick needs. They get a little bit of dew, but they mostly just need the bugs. And if there are no bugs, so it's like when you're coming around and you see a lot of grasshoppers in a springtime, that's a good sign.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of sign. You're driving through, and when you look at the difference in driving, because we've lived in multiple different states. I've lived in multiple different states. In the spring, early summer time frame, when you're up in the Dakotas, the entire front of your vehicle looks like a bug.
Yes.
Just splattered. So gross.
Down here, it isn't the same. Now, there are years when it is, but for the most part, the number of bugs here are drastically less. And
It's the waterfall.
prairie pothole region, right? Water everywhere. Yes, absolutely. And here we're drier. So all of those things being said, you need what the programs are initially developed to be. And that involves the varying heights and the multiple species mixed into the collection. You've got to be able to maintain that.
Yeah.
So, getting back to your story
About
of the shelter belt.
hedgerow.
Yeah. And the thousands of birds we saw busting out of there into that Milo. It was incredibly insane.
We had video of it because
Yeah.
we stopped and we tried to jump them, and it was unproductive. We walked from each end and we jumped in about
And they just all
quarter of
blew
the
out
way
the
and
center.
They blew out the center. We tried to, but have you ever seen a pheasant in a tree?
Yes.
Okay.
All of them were in trees. This entire shelter belt. It was just insane.
Long shelter belt story short. Yes, this entire 1 mile long shelter belt was chock full of pheasants. And
In
if there
trees.
were 100, there were 2,000. And to truly put this into perspective in my mind, I always feel like I overestimate stuff. You know, like, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
sure, there were 2,000
Yeah.
birds, right? I was walking, and last year seemed like a tough year in the area that we were at for harvest numbers. Okay, so we were coming in the vicinity. I mean, we harvested. I just talked about 600-700 birds.
Yeah.
We harvested just short of 400 last year.
Oh.
Okay, so that's half, right?
Yeah, that's
2/3 math.
math hard.
Yeah, math hard. But it's roughly half, okay?
Yeah.
It's bad looking. You go back and look at that, though, as far as the total number of birds that we moved, the number of hens were through the roof.
Well, that's
And-
a really good sign.
It is. And even with a mediocre, at best, hatch this year, that area is going to be booming.
Oh, yeah. Huge.
And I was like, I'm overestimating this. So we did this 1/4 mile walk, and the way that we try again is having a mixture of things, right? So it's a food plot strip. It's abandoned railroad, so you can imagine like a railroad wide embankment. Well, it's completely abandoned, and the center of the railroad area is now planted to a mixture. Up there, they use cool season grasses. Here, we use primarily warm season grasses. So cool season grasses, they have like a tall and intermediate wheatgrass mixed with some alfalfa and potentially a thing or two more, but not a lot. And by year 4 or 5, it's pretty much wheatgrass wall to wall. But this is that wheatgrass. It's on its second year where it actually starts to produce pretty good grass cover, and then a Milo food plot strip on either side of it. And you're talking,
That's pretty good habitat.
that's pretty cool. And it's about two people can be kind of close together in the grass, one person in each Milo strip, and then a person outside. So you're talking 2, 4, 5, 6 people or what can, I mean, tighter than average probably, but still reasonably covering this strip. So we've got 6 people, we've got 4 people down blocking, or 3 people blocking with one person, kind of like a pinch, like where they always blow out. So I've got one person pitched into that zone. It's like birds follow patterns pretty hard.
Yeah. Yes.
So we try and learn from those patterns and prevent for them next time. But walkers and blockers, what I'm explaining, there's you can prevent birds from blowing out the end of the field a little bit because pheasant hunting is all about pressure, especially in that zone. If you have pressure in the right places, right time, magic happens. If you don't, you watch a lot of birds, you become a bird watcher. So the other thing that's an advantage of the blockers is they drive vehicles to the end, which keeps you moving, so you don't have to walk down, walk back. Well, we walked this 1/4 mile, 400 yards, and I counted like 87 birds, which is a lot. It was a good run. Lots of birds coming out. There were 8 roosters. Less than 10.
Holy cow.
So 8 to 1 let's say, estimating, right? Hens to roosters, which it's usually closer to like a 50-50.
Yeah.
Or you hit a pocket of hens, pocket of roosters. So I don't know if that is nature's way of saying we're going to rebound, but there's usually like a 10-year cycle on things.
So one thing I can tell you
Yeah.
is through the process. So we have incubated our own birds, right? Our eggs and all this.
Absolutely.
And there is a temperature area where if the temperature is at it, don't ask me the specifics,
Okay.
but I studied on this a little bit. I just can't remember. But if the temperature is at a little bit lower or a little bit higher, you'll produce more hens than roosters or more roosters than hens. So if there's a temperature where the temperature's, I believe this is correct, where the temperature's lower, you are going to see more hens. If the temperature's just slightly higher, you're going to see more roosters. And we're only talking about like a degree to 3/4 of a degree in temperature change, which creates that. Now, this is something I read 15 years ago.
Sure.
So, but I can't say this is 100% fact. I'm kind of a dumb guy. I read something, I remember something, but and that might be what it is. If they had a really cool hatch season and the hens were sitting on the eggs and they were a little bit lower in temperature, you would get a lot more hens. If the temperature's just a little bit higher, you should get a lot more roosters via the study I read.
Sure. I know that the total number of birds that we saw didn't seem down.
Okay.
I spent a lot of time in the field. Now, I say down. The big groups of birds were definitely down earlier in the season, or most of the season that I was up there, because it was warm.
Yeah.
Right.
And so they're just out.
They're spread out. They don't need anything.
Yeah.
And that's what, like, a lot of people don't understand. Like, oh, I'm excited for good weather. I'm like, I want crappy weather. You know.
Yeah, oh yeah, amen.
Because if without the crappy weather, we're going to see onesie twosies, not bigger groups. They don't need anything. We don't know where they're going to be. They could be out in the middle of a pasture for that. They don't care. They're just where they want. The hatch.
We had a little bit of a technical difficulty we had to move through.
And just like that, my glass was full of
boom.
bourbon.
And that was a technical difficulty. We ran out of ice, and we had to go take care of that problem. So with that being said, there is that study that I saw that says that. And as you were saying that the big groups were down because of the temperature and all that, and we see that a lot in Kansas.
It's warm here most of the season.
Yes.
Most of it.
Yes, except for January and February. One of the things that I would really like to talk to you guys a little bit about is, obviously, we do the podcast. We do the podcast to promote our businesses as well as the group we have on. We served you dinner because obviously we feed you booze the entire podcast. So what did you think about our new steak rub?
It was absolutely fantastic. The steak that I had was good. Whatever you rubbed on it, delicious.
It wasn't actually a rub, so it was our new steak seasoning. So what we did is we worked with a cattle company out of Missouri.
Okay.
They contacted us. There's a long story behind this, but they contacted us and they needed a rub for cooking cattle for their clients. So the clients they were selling cattle to, they wanted to be able to cook some of their product, and they needed to develop this rub they were going after. And Wes Spinks reached out to my wife and I, Jessica and I, and asked us to fine-tune this rub for him. And so we fine-tuned the rub, and he loves it. And matter of fact, we'll be releasing that rub here in the next 2 months. And so we took that rub and we modified that to create a steak seasoning. And that's what you guys had today. And we haven't released that yet. We plan on releasing that about the next 6 months. And so I was curious what you guys thought of that.
I really liked it. I also have to say that I really liked the seasoning on the potatoes, even if you screwed it up, Stephen.
Yes, I screwed. So what happened is historically, we would put Jessica's hands down seasoning on the potatoes, which is actually better than the sweet and hot that we put on the potatoes today. So we gave you guys a gift set.
I'll have to test it out and see which one ends
Yes.
up being the favorite at our house. But
And hopefully when you guys come back on, you guys will get to tell us what you thought was best. One of the things I will say is when we release the Spinks Ranch beef rub, if you mix that with butter, warm butter, room temperature butter, and rub it over a prime rib, wrap the prime rib in saran wrap, put it in your refrigerator until the butter hardens overnight, pull it out, put it in an electric smoker, turn the temperature to about 190, put smoke to it, smoke it for 5 or 6 hours until it hits the internal temperature you're looking for with a pan underneath it. You will have the most amazing prime rib you've had.
we love prime ribs,
So,
take notes, babe.
well, maybe next time you guys come down, maybe our podcast will be talking and cooking at the same time.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
So, because we will have our line of smokers released here in the next year.
That's awesome.
Is
That's
the
awesome.
plan. So, I'm glad you guys like that.
Can we drink wine that time? And be Julia Child.
I can tell you this: we can provide wine. For
I'll
the
drink
people.
the wine. I like wine. I'm not a bourbon girl. I like my cocktails, and I definitely like a good red wine. So
I know my wife likes wine. She typically likes a sweet wine. We make wine. We
Really?
make wine ourselves. We know how to do that. We've done that. And eventually there's a possibility that here in the next 5 to 6 years that we may actually have bourbons that we make ourselves.
Oh,
Oh,
cool.
cool.
Very cool.
But that's down the road a little bit, and my wife's over there going, "No, you got enough on your plate." But I'm pretty sure as we grow the things that we do, bourbon, we will be making a bourbon at one time eventually. So back to what you guys I asked you guys for the funny one. You gave me the funny one, and then we talked about a
Most memorable.
windbreak.
oh yeah,
Now-
that very long story.
Yes, very
About
long
a very
story.
long windbreak. I mean,
Shelter
It
belt.
was
Yeah.
a long shelter belt.
full of pheasants.
Yes, and the funny thing about that is you guys mentioned pheasants being in trees. I've had pheasants go in trees before, and I've had hunters go, "Wild birds don't go in trees." I was like, "Yes, they do.
Very
yes,
much
they
so.
do." So now, what is your most memorable?
You
I've
have to
got
go
mine.
first. You have to go first
Yeah, I've
because
got
I'm
mine.
pretty sure I know what yours is, and I don't want to steal it. So
Thank you. Most memorable hunting trip that I've ever been on was just a few years back, and I went with Kat and Aiden, my little boy, and me. We went to Montana, and I wanted to do. I want to be able to share what's important to me without forcing it down his throat. Right?
Amen.
You know, it's one of those things that I'm going to support whatever he wants to do, and we have two little boys now, and I'm going to support whatever they want to do. Now, I would love for those things to align with some of the things that I like to do, right? But
Oh, yeah.
if and I say this, 'cause I've got a younger brother who's a cheerleader, and that you hear cheerleader and you go, oh, the guy with the pink gun, right? Well, I mean, he's a jacked jock, and it takes a superior athlete
he
to be
likes
able to
refer to himself as a
Woman
woman
hoister.
hoister.
Yep.
You know, lifting those
So-
girls in the air. So
Yeah,
Yeah. So he is he's a support tool.
yes,
Yes.
absolutely. And it takes a pretty special amount of strength in order to be able to do that stuff. So he set, we'll make this tangent short, but he's cool. He set high school records in Kansas, Gardner's 6A. So he graduated Gardner Edgerton High School. They're either 5A or 6A. They've gone back and forth a little bit. Whatever. Top level school in the state of Kansas. He set records at the state lifting competition, and he was 195, so he's under 200 pounds, and he beat every competitor, all of the weight classes above him, in cleans, so lift and press, cleans, just up.
Yep.
And then bench press.
And squats?
I think that some of the bigger boys squatted more than he did, but he still set a record in all three of those and won the competition in his weight class, division. Obviously, very, very easily. But so woman hoister. Now,
so what you're saying is he's prepped for any cheerleader that might come along his way.
He is prepared to hoist. Yes. So whatever the boys want to do,
we'll support them.
I'll
100%.
support them. Yeah. But I'm also going to try and provide glimpses of the things that are important to me and have put a huge impact in my life to the boys when it's all possible. And so we took a trip, the three of us, to Montana. This is pre our youngest, Cade, and it was an adventure. Okay, so people a lot of times measure, I believe, still, as much as it may be kind of romanticized or talked about, oh, it's not about the killing, right? But when you talk about hunting trips, people say, oh, yeah, we shot a limb at this day, and we did that. And I mean, it's one of the top things that people talk about.
Trophy
100%.
hunting, things like that, yeah.
I shot 2 grouse in 3 days of quote-unquote hunting. The days were, and we had goals of making it further than we did. And by the time we made it to South Dakota, the western half of South Dakota, but the first day of traveling with our little man, which he travels great, but still a full day of traveling for him. He's a little man. Yes.
We're not grinding like we used to, where we would pull like 24 hours straight. We could just do it.
I did that one time by myself, stupid. Drove from Oregon back to Kansas nonstop. That was 22 hours of driving.
We used to do crazy
stuff
like that.
I stopped to pee. I stopped to fill with fuel. And I stopped to get bags of candy and coffee. Yep. So we go on this trip, though, and we hit the first place. It's a hotel stay. Let dogs out. He's helping with that. He wants to be part of it. He can walk. He's toddling around. How old was he?
He
Between
was,
a year and a half and 2.
Yeah, he was 18-ish months.
Yeah.
It was September, so 20 months.
20 months old. So not quite 2 years old. And, you know, it was, we get up in the morning. I go let dogs out. He's still asleep. We come back in. Little man's got to eat breakfast. Go down, continental breakfast, whatever. Got to make a pancake. Got to get a yogurt cup. Oh, the fruit looks good. We get cereal. We don't eat, not to be wasteful, but we don't eat all of it. But eyes are bigger when we have these options, right? And we're not even 2.
Yep.
And so we go through that experience, and then we got to go let dogs out again because he said, I want to help let dogs out. Oh, okay, that's right. We got to go we don't need to let dogs out again, but we're going to go let dogs out again so you can help. And we finally hit the Montana border, which our goal was to hunt Montana, right? We don't make it even an hour into Montana. We're already hunting. We're finding a place to stay. We're not traveling the next 16 hours to north central Montana where we'd planned to go. We're hunting here. I don't care if we kill anything or not. We're hunting here. And we use Onyx maps. We find properties. We call landowners. We find the properties you don't have to call because a few people were a little harder to get a hold of. They had specific windows and things. So there's type 1, type 2. I think it's considered type 1, type 2 public ground there.
Yeah.
Or private owners' land. Forget what is it? BLM? Nah, it's block management. Is it block management?
Yeah.
Block 1, block 2, whatever.
Yeah.
So we use that. We find the spots. And it's like, all right, so we're ready, right? You throw collars on dogs, you go hunt. No, we throw collars on dogs. We get the little man out. He's got to pee because we were working on potty training, starting that process.
Amen.
He pees. Then we load him up in the little pack.
Yep.
get his earmuffs on, remind him he's got to wear those the whole time in case Dad has to shoot at some point in time because it's wild birds. We don't know when they're popping up. And then we start walking. We get dogs ready. We do the whole 9 yards. We take off. We get 100 yards in the field. We got to pee again. So we undo the pack. We get down. We get off. We stand there. We both, sure, I'll pee with you, buddy. So we stand there and we start drawing our name in the sand, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And then load back up, get ready to roll, take off again. And
then he'd fall asleep.
Then he fell
He'd be
asleep, you
sleeping
know,
in
and
the
you're
little
walking.
pack.
I'm like, I can't shoot now. He's asleep. You know, I might scare him or something, right? So we walk and walk and walk and shoot, I don't know. We maybe hunted this little loop on the deal that might have been a 2-mile walk or something like that. You know, not much ground in the grand scheme of
Hunting.
short land, grassland hunting. Yep. Get back in the truck, go and try and find a new area. We struck out there, didn't even see anything.
We saw more deer and pheasants, I think.
We did see more deer and pheasants than we
Than
did
we
anything
saw.
else. But we go to the next spot and
It's
shoot,
lunchtime.
it's nap time, right?
Oh,
so
yeah. So we're
fall
napping in the
asleep. So
truck.
now we're sitting in the truck waiting for the little man to wake up. And then by the time he wakes up, shoot, it is lunchtime. So then we make a snack and eat and sit on the tailgate and eat lunch. And then, you know, about that time we got to pee again and load up, make another little loop. It's nap time. Well, we're dang near out of daytime. You know, I mean,
Walk
and then it's
2
dinner
little
time.
loops.
We made 2 little loops in 2 different properties and didn't see a bird, and it was the coolest hunting trip I have ever been on.
And you did actually shoot.
I shot a grouse with him on my back day 3 in one of the fields, and it
and
was
Thunder
cool.
retrieved it, which was one of
Thunder
our new little
retrieved it, yeah.
puppies at the time, which was just like all of the cool like pieces that clicked together. So
And we started to figure out the area, noticing some of the better habitat places more likely to, because we bumped a few, saw a few earlier, but when you're only walking 2 short loops a day,
Yeah.
where we went another time, and I mean, we probably walked 16, 18 miles a day, you know,
Yeah.
grinding,
Yeah.
and saw a lot more. But we were also, again, about 8 hours further into the state. So, you know, but it was such a cool trip. I mean, head back to the hotel a little bit early. He wanted to swim in the pool, splash around in the pool. You know, I mean, it was just a really, really cool trip. Going into it, having that expectation that it wasn't my normal hunting trip, and it was about him and being part of it. It was just fun. It was really, really cool.
You know, that, yeah, I heard you talk about the people saying that there's times they go out and it's not about the harvest of the animal or whatever it is. I find, especially in what I do and what my wife does in the guiding what we do, is we have groups that come out, and there will be numerous people that come out, and the hunting is just a sideshow.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we do mostly controlled releases because some of these people saved all year to come out for a weekend with their buddies or their family or their kids. I had one guided hunt with a sponsor that I talked to, and he came out and he had his daughter out, and he has back problems. So we got him in the gator, and we let him follow around while we guided the hunt and all that. And by the end of the hunt, I got to see a grown man crying because he was so happy about what his daughter was getting to do.
Absolutely.
So I've got to watch quite a bit of these experiences like you're talking about. And it's pretty cool. It really is cool. So hunting today compared to what it was when I was young, where you walk 20, 30 miles a day, you know, whatever it is, 16, whatever. I wouldn't do that today because I'll just put the birds out and chase them. But it's really changed a little bit, where people want to go out and have a really good experience. They want to be able to experience the experience you're talking about, with their family, their kids, and everything else. Matter of fact, because controlled shooting area is still open until the end of April, I actually have a hunt Friday.
Yeah.
That it is just a 75-year-old man and his son. And we're going to go put out some quail, and we're going to chase quail.
Cool.
It's going to be warm, but it's one of those things I like to point at that is not every hunting experience has to be about, oh, I got all this. It could just be a really good memory.
Yep.
Your turn, Kat.
Okay. Well, mine's not going to sound like quite as amazing as Ethan's. And I knew that was going to be his because we've talked about it before. And it was an awesome experience for both of us, for sure. But I would say mine was very shortly after we had been married. Well, it wasn't that shortly after we were married because Nick's was there. So he is 10, so was basically at the very beginning of us starting our business for ourselves. And we went back to North Dakota, which is where I'm from originally, to hunt with my dad. And I'd been, like I said, hunting with my dad since I was 11. Pheasant hunting, dove hunting, a little duck hunting, deer hunting, but primarily pheasant hunting. We had no dogs growing up, so I was the bird dog, which is...
I've heard that story a lot.
Not as enjoyable as hunting behind dogs. Now that we are hunting behind dogs all the time, I've become very spoiled to that.
Well, I will say when I helped and initially started hunting a little bit with your family, and we didn't have dogs at all. When you're the bird dog, you get a lot better at marking where the bird went down.
Oh.
You get pretty lackadaisical with it, and
when you got the dogs,
dependent on the dogs. Like
yes.
I went that way, I think.
We'll just walk the dogs in that area and they'll find it. It's fine. So this was very shortly after we had started our own business, with our own dogs from our own breeding program, things like that. And we were walking and hunting, and my dad and I were blocking, and I think you were walking this shelter belt, and a pheasant comes out. And I just remember I took this overhead shot swinging through, and I shot this pheasant over my head, killed it dead. Nix, my young dog, retrieved it to me, and my dad was just floored. Because remember, we grew up without dogs.
Yep.
He's been hunting with me a lot, but I mean, that's a difficult shot.
Oh, yeah.
And my dog not only marked it, found it, and retrieved it to me, all the things clicked together, and he was just astounded at putting all those pieces together, was really proud. He kept talking about it to all the farmers we came across. He's like, you should have seen my daughter shoot this bird, and just that proud dad moment, which made me very proud that he was proud of me and that he was seeing what we were doing and accomplishing and saw value in that. So that was a really cool experience, and I didn't get to hunt with my dad all that often, us being from Kansas at the time, him and my mom from North Dakota, and not getting to do that together all that often. So that was a really great experience.
That really rings true to the conversation that we just had. Because think about the pride your dad had for you. Hey, my daughter's grown up to be a very independent businesswoman that can go out and do all the things that I really loved doing with her when she was young, and now she's doing it and making a living at it.
Yeah.
So I think, if I remember right, and I might be wrong, the dog that retrieved your bird, is that the...
We have a lot of dogs.
Yeah, I know. I saw a post, and it was from you about you were holding a dog, and you were saying, this is the first dog I ever
That
trained.
was Nick's, yep, and that's the dog.
And I was thinking why don't you tell me about, because everybody I don't care if you're a professional, I don't care if you're amateur, why don't you tell me a little bit about the opportunities that Nick's provided you and how you both kind of learned together to become one of the fantastic trainers that you are today?
Yeah, that's an awesome story. So Nick's is, lovingly I refer to him as Punky. because he is a punk. He is a very powerful, independent dog. Probably not the best dog to be your first bird dog. He definitely pushed me a little bit to grow and learn. I made lots of mistakes along the way. But he was the first dog that I got to take through all the levels, from that beginning puppy phases, going through the puppy testing. We do a lot of testing through NAVDA as well as AKC. So I ran him through his puppy NAVDA NA test, and he got a prize 1 max score, which, was a huge proud moment for me and really continued to light that fire. I ran him through his AKC master hunt tests, and he is now a master hunter. And then I ran him through his utility testing, and he's a utility prize 1 dog. And in NAVDA, if you get a utility prize 1, you're invited to the invitational. It's a 1-time-a-year test. All the dogs that have become utility prize 1 dogs are invited, and if they'd like to participate, they can enter in that test, and then they can run. And if they pass, they become a VC. So I've done that twice with Nix. We've gone to the invitational.
VC meaning versatile champion.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep, sorry. And unfortunately, we have not passed at the invitational twice for one reason or another. I always jokingly say if I could just smash both of his tests together, he'd be a VC because he would fail at one thing in the test and then he'd pass it the next time and then vice versa. So he taught me a lot about training, taught me a lot about confidence in myself as a trainer, and trusting myself, trusting my husband as a trainer. That's a hard one to say.
Hold on. Let me cover this real quick. For the people that aren't married, I can tell you this. I don't care what side of the fence you're on, whether you're the wife or the husband, it is probably some of the most challenging things to do is to take the advice of the other side of the fence, right? So,
especially in the heat of the moment.
yes, because who are you the most honest with? The people you love the most, right? And so when she says, taking the advice of my husband, knowing that he's right, and I don't want to admit it.
Exactly.
And I see the grin, because some of this will be audio. I see the grin on Ethan like, I'm not saying a word, but I'm going to shake my head.
Yes, because he was a more experienced handler at that point in time. He'd been training a little bit longer than I had to higher levels before I had started with Nix. And so his advice was very valuable. I didn't always take it, of course, because I maybe thought that I knew more than him, or that he didn't really know what I was doing or what I should be doing with my own dog. And hindsight is very much 20/20.
Yes.
And there are times where I was like, man, I really wish I would have listened to him in those situations, because maybe I wouldn't have made so many mistakes. But Nix was a very good dog to learn on, because he was bold and confident and independent. So he ended up teaching me things along the way, and he recovered from those mistakes. There's dogs that are forgiving and say, hey, you made a mistake, but you know what? I'm still good enough to push through that mistake and teach you something. And he was definitely one of those. I've gone on lots of adventures with him, from waterfowl hunting, goose hunting, upland hunting. And he's one of the nicest bird dogs. He's a very natural bird finding dog. He is an excellent retriever, backing dog. He is getting a little naughty in his old age because he is 10 now, and we've utilized him to teach a lot of our young dogs through bracemate work, and he is deciding at this point in his life he would rather avoid backs and get all the points if it's up to him, but he's still doing an excellent job as a bracemate with our dogs, and hunting, of course, with us. He's not slowing down as much as I would expect a 10-year-old. We had this conversation earlier about, those short hairs. They basically are all in until the last few minutes of their life. And we have his dad still, actually. We refer to him as Grandpa Rex, who's 16. And he is, Yeah, he's old.
Holy cow, 16.
Yes, he sleeps most of the day now. He is still
He's a
very
creature of the night.
Yeah, he sleeps from about 7 o'clock at night. After dinner, he goes to bed and wakes up about at 10 in the morning. Then goes out and goes potty. Then comes back in and is ready for breakfast. Then sleeps most of the day. He's great with our kids. He's can still, get around pretty well. So doing well for as old as he is. But he's definitely not hunting really anymore. We took him out for his 16th birthday to shoot a couple birds over him, but that was it. He's not going guiding or anything crazy. No. But Nick still definitely is, and I am excited for Aiden and Cade to get that opportunity when they're ready for it, to work with a dog and train a dog and have their first dog as well, that they can learn and, take or leave mom and dad's advice, which I'm assuming most of it will be left. But
that is definitely one of the biggest challenges. I've tried to train my kids to shoot shotgun, and I found it was easier to have a friend of mine that knew how to shoot shotgun and could train to tell the kid exactly what I was saying, because then they would actually listen, because it wasn't dad or It wasn't mom telling them. So speaking of your kids, and speaking of the quality of breeding that you do for a family dog. So we're friends on Facebook. I get the opportunity to see some of Kat's little videos. I don't know what they're called.
Stories, I guess.
Stories.
Yeah.
And I got to see your youngest. There was one of the, it looked like a pup, 7 to 8 months old, maybe. I could be completely wrong. In a chair. And he was flipping the feet.
No, that was Nick's. That was my 10-year-old Nick's dog.
So he was flipping the feet of this dog.
And he's just letting him.
And the German short hair was just looking at him. And so the reason I bring this up is because breeding. So I've had a lot of people debate with me about, well, I can go get this $200 German short hair from this guy that had a dog, right? And I tell him, I was like, yes, you can. And, you might get lucky and you might be able to train this dog, and this dog might be a fantastic bird dog. It might be a fantastic house dog. But you don't know that for sure. So one of the things that, part of the reason that we focus our breeding process for when we need another dog through you guys is because it's guaranteed. So when we breed through you guys, I know that I say, this is the personality of the dog I have. This is the bloodline. Tell me what dog I need to breed to. You guys come to me and you guys say, okay, your dog is high energy or your dog is a little less energy. This is the comparable dog for ours, to find that neutrality in the breeding process. And so when I see pictures of how old is your youngest?
Almost a year.
So less than a year, flipping the feet of a dog, and the dog's laying there just chill. But at the same time, this is the very same dog that you, Kat, shot this bird, and the dog went and got the bird, brought the bird back. So the dog has hunting drive, but can shut off in your house. So I call that the on and off switch.
Sure.
And so with breeding with you guys is like phenomenal to me, because the on and off switch is really important for us, because we keep 100% of our dogs in the house. So we have 5 German short hairs in our house, and they shut off. And then as soon as we take them to the field, they turn on. So through your breeding process and your selection process and you guys' years of experience, you've been in business for 10 years, but 10 years is just how long you have had Standing Stone Kennels, not your experience level. And so you guys are able to create a breeding program that creates a fantastic family dog with a fantastic sporting breed dog. And so this goes back to my conversation that you guys are the next generation of breeders. You guys are the next generation of dog trainers, in my opinion. Keep in mind, I'm looking back at the old guys, right? And I'm not saying the old guys are doing it wrong. I'm just saying you guys are doing it, I want to say better, but definitely different.
Well, there's been a huge shift in what a bird dog is viewed as. And I think back in the day, if you will, bird dogs were a tool.
Yeah,
Yes.
most of them were viewed as a tool and maybe not part of the family.
And I kind of learned a majority of bird hunting and kind of the basis of how I hunt birds and how I work bird dogs and that aspect of things. Learned a little bit through my uncle. He's a bigger bird dog guy, has been for a long time, and he's kind of evolved as far as what he has as well. Because when he started, he had pointers or pointer Brittany crosses, and my grandfather on that side had some short hair Brittany or short hair pointer crosses
And Weimaraners were in there
some
somewhere
Weims,
too.
yep. So bird dogs, but some mutts and some different stuff, but all just bird dogs. And they lived in the pen out back, and you didn't mess with them. And when we went to Uncle Richard's house, you don't play with the bird dogs because they're working dogs, and they live out there and they do their thing. And now he has short hairs from us, and they live in the house with him. They've got a kennel run out back when he goes to work and whatever, but they come in the house and they sleep on the couch, and they're family companions. And what we've tried to do is breed versatile dogs, and versatility in its entirety. A dog that can be a family companion and an upland dog and a waterfowl dog. A dog that can go waterfowl hunting in the morning with you, and then upland hunt in the afternoon, and then sleep on the couch and watch the game in the evening. That's a...
Sorry for interrupting.
No.
But I'll tell you what. So we breed our one dog who is she has the on and off switch naturally too.
Sure.
But we have bred Autumn, which we consider to be our high-end fantastic dog.
She's bred really well herself.
And then we've bred to Vex. And Vex and her create some pretty awesome dogs. So that breeding, I had a guy call me, not the guy that with the dog that I sold, but a guy that watched the dog down in Virginia at a dog train. I can't remember all the fine details, but he watched. The dog was named Kansas.
That's cool.
Well,
awesome.
The guy was in Ohio that bought Kansas, and then he was training the dog, and he was doing some dog test in Virginia.
Yeah.
And some guy in Virginia called me saying, I've never seen a dog this good. And I can guarantee you it's because of the combination of what you guys put together based on what I gave you. Because I can guarantee you I didn't have anything to do with it.
Oh, come on.
No.
It's
There's
a
50-50 game there.
50-50.
Well, I just own the dog. But the level of what you guys do. So I'm going to walk through what, and maybe this is common knowledge to everybody but me. So I'm going to walk through the first time I communicated to you guys about breeding. Okay. the steps you guys took, and how, and this is maybe the wrong phrase, how efficient your process is. And it really astonished me because I'm an old guy, and I'll get to that. So I called you guys up, and I was like, hey, I've got Autumn. I'd like to breed her to one of your dogs, XYZ, yeah. And you were like, send me your papers, let me look at it. You looked at it, and you said, okay, is she solid, so on and so forth. I was like, yeah, she's got a little white here, a little white there. And you informed me about the pros and cons, all kinds of stuff that I can't quite finitely describe right now. And I was like, yeah, I just need another dog. What can we do? And you were like, okay, I've got Vex. Your dog's basically solid liver with some white. Vex is a beautiful ticked black and white, and it should work out real well. So we did this breeding, and I'm like, okay, so when do I need to show up? You're like, well, when did she start, blah, blah, blah. When did it start running clear, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't know. And you were nice enough to go, just bring your dog out. So I brought Autumn out. You guys were like, okay, let's take blood. I'm like, why are you taking dog's blood? and you guys gave me a way more complex answer. Science. That's what you should have just told me. Science. But you gave me this bigger complex answer than I understood. And I was like, okay. So I took dog out. You guys took blood. And then you gave me, you need to be here on this date, this date, and this date. I said, okay, why? We're going to take blood again on this date. And we're going to see what that blood does. We'll know in 24 hours. And then we're going to do X, Y, and Z. So through your process, the dog only needed to breed twice instead of the old process of throw it in a kennel and see what happens. So Autumn had 13 puppies that first round, and she was 3. So whatever you did, you knew what you were doing. So do me a favor. Take this jumbled up mess that I just take this jumbled up mess that I threw out there, consolidate it into some kind of rational thinking, and share with the people so you guys stud out, and this is kind of where I'm going. You guys stud out a little bit. I don't know how much.
A little.
And even through your breeding process. So let's not focus. You focus on whatever you want, but what I'm trying to show is the intelligence behind your breeding process. It isn't the old, and this goes back to my conversation that you're the next generation of breeders. You're not the let's throw them in the kennel. She started her cycle. Let's just put them in the same pen until it's done. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the next generation of dog breeders. And to me, that's where you guys are at. So that's where I'm trying to take you.
So Ethan definitely has the info when it comes to pedigree. So, he said, send her pedigree over so I can look at it. He has a pedigree program with how many dogs in the database?
Almost 30,000.
So he has 30,000 dogs.
Whoa. 30,000 dogs in this.
Well,
holy
when
cow.
we look at a pedigree, a lot of times, and looking at what a cross would be between Autumn and Vex, we try and get as many dogs in a 10-generation pedigree as we can, which in a 10-generation pedigree, there's 2,046 dogs that make up that pedigree because of all the generations and grandparents and great-grandparents and so on and so forth. So you take...
Hold on. Science.
And you take those pedigrees and you look at the dogs, and within those 2,046 dogs, there's repeated dogs because this dog's ancestor is similar to this dog's ancestor. And so within that pedigree, you're looking at unique ancestors as well as coefficients of inbreeding. And this is where Ethan is much more knowledgeable about that science-y part of things. I can look at those pedigrees, I can look at those numbers and understand all of it, most of it. And I help do a lot of the data entry for that, because getting 30,000 dogs imported into a database that then you can utilize when you're creating these other pedigrees takes a very long time, because we try and include as much information as we can about those dogs, from registration numbers, coloration, titling, master hunters, utility prize won dogs, field trial champions, show champions, things like that are recorded. Any health clearances that have been recorded about the dogs. We try and include all that information so that it's as inclusive and complete as possible. So then Ethan looks at those things and says, based on Autumn's pedigree or whoever's pedigree, and based on our studs, these dogs would be complementary to each other. We're going to get, the best coefficient of inbreeding, unique dogs, and then we're going to look at percentage of blood as well, which that is important when you're looking at what you're going to be producing in a litter. And we want to produce very consistent litters so that when Autumn has a 13 puppy litter, each puppy is as consistently similar as possible, so that puppy A is not a complete crapshoot compared to puppy B or puppy D. And then you can say, when I'm selling a puppy from this litter, I can guarantee you they're going to do this, this, and this because of their parentage. Did I get most of that right?
I mean, pretty good. Absolutely. Absolutely. So,
and sometimes you get so sciencey.
It gets to be a little too much. Sure. To
follow.
break down, just to explain a couple of the things that you mentioned. So 10 generations is what we look at, and I don't 100% know why, other than it's enough to be a lot, because I think coefficient of inbreeding is the percentage of repeated dogs, and it's a formula that calculates like a certain percentage of number of times dogs are repeated, basically how related are the puppies essentially to all of their ancestors. Now, when you look at those things, it's skewed a couple different ways. So you get a COI, or coefficient of inbreeding. It's most directly affected by the first three generations. So up front, what happens? Then you have unique ancestors. Kat kind of glanced over that. That's the number of dogs it took to make up or fill all 2,046 spots. So if, let's say, Hillhaven's Hustler, that's probably a name a few bird dog people have heard of.
I've heard that one.
Okay, he's a Hall of Fame dog. Hall of Fame stuff is all field trial based, but still Hall of Fame dog. Hustler may show up 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 times, depending on how tightly a litter is bred, but he is one unique ancestor. He fills 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 spots out of that 2,046. Get where I'm going with this? Okay, so the lower number of unique ancestors, the tighter the breeding is. And that shows up more on the back end. So you have COI that's most directly affected by the front end. Unique ancestor numbers most directly affected on the back end. And it gets exponentially different when you go from like 7 generations to 10 generations, because there's a lot of dogs add in there.
And it's crazy, because this took me a long time to wrap my head around. So there's 2,046 spots in a 10-generation pedigree, but there are not 2,046 unique different dogs that make that up. That's where that 550 dogs or 650 dogs make up all those spots. So you may have Hillhaven Hustler show up 50 times of that 2046. So then that leaves 2,000 spots to fill with the remaining dogs, and then each spot is filled out differently.
Now, you mentioned also percentage of blood.
Yep.
Okay, so that calculation is based off of what or basically percentage. It's a relation type of calculation. Okay, so you have hustler that's, let's say, 50 times he shows up in this pedigree. Okay, so, but he doesn't show up until generation 6.
Because he's an older dog that's
But he's
not
an older dog,
producing
whatever. But
current
the
litters.
percentage of blood makes him the quote-unquote equivalent of a grandparent or something like that. And if I had my database, we could pull up actual
But when
examples to
but when
give
you
you
think
specifics.
about it,
but
like you look at a person, it's easier when you think about people. So Aiden, our child, is 50%
50-50.
Ethan,
Yep.
50% Cat.
Yeah.
Then he's 25%
of all of the grandparents.
all of the grandparents.
Yep.
So
well, with dogs, that doesn't always work that way because there's inbreeding and you know
Yep.
line breeding and things that are done.
and when you get to those back dogs, if it shows up like we have some breedings that are tighter hustler bred, and he'll show up as like 24.7%. Well, he doesn't show up until the 6th or 7th generation in the pedigree, but he's the equivalent
Of a
blood
grandparent.
wise of a grandparent, which means he's got a lot of genetic influence on what the puppies are. And when you start looking at things, we look at it from a pretty strong standpoint of, I think this will produce this based on what we know those things produce. And then when we have things that go, whoa, that wasn't exactly what we expected, we go back and look a little closer and go, okay, so it also had this and this and this. That's different from these other things. Let's avoid that, or let's try and repeat that, whatever it may be. So it's all data-based. And I had another guy that was had a little more background in genetic aspect of things. And he's like, it's not that simple. I'm like, yeah, but it's accurate. Okay, so you can say it's not that simple, but it is accurate. The other aspect of it is hybrid vigor. Have you heard that term before?
No, I have not.
Okay, so that would be, hybrids would be outcrosses. You like a hybrid. They talk about
It strengthens genetics.
werewolves.
okay. Yep.
Okay.
Werewolves.
So no.
because That's a real thing.
Come on now. It's
How many bourbons have you had?
enough. Just enough.
He hadn't even finished number 1. The key about bourbon
Is
is
if
if
you
your
just
glass doesn't
never
go
gets
empty,
empty,
it's filled
the
never
first one.
you
You
never
never
finish
moved to number 2. So
I see this rule.
it's the werewolf vampire movies that you we watched. What is that? The lichens and they.
Underworld?
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so we're basing this off that. There's a hybrid. It's a combination.
Oh,
The
this is
werewolves
pretty
and the vampires come together. Anyhow, that's like hybrid is a term
Yep.
from a movie standpoint that's used. It's also a genetic term. Hybrid vigor. They cross different things like subspecies of fish. Smallmouth and a largemouth
Yep.
bass were crossed, and they were called. Do you know?
No.
Striped bass.
No.
No.
Dang.
That's
I
a
they're
thought
called
it was
like
a trivia question.
wiper and white bass.
Yes, that's stripers and white bass.
Yep.
Or
You get the wiper.
wipers. Yep.
Yep.
So they're called like monster mouths or something.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And they were like crazy, and they killed all the fish in the pond.
Yep.
Yep. So hybrid vigor strengthens genetics. Line breeding weakens genetics. And the
Yes.
first things, but it also creates consistency. So it's a balance act.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you get too far. The first things to go are mothering instincts and
Fertility.
fertility.
Mm.
Okay, so genetics and nature says
We don't want this to
we
happen.
don't need to go any further this direction, so you are sterile and you can't produce eggs, and we're stopping this.
Yeah.
So that's gone too far, and we don't approach that category very often, but there are times where you move a direction.
You
'cause-
nudge that line because it's a line, it's a fine line, it's a balancing act because you want consistency in your litters, but you don't want to lose the fertility. You don't want to lose mothering instinct. You want moms to do their job, and you
Yep.
want quality size litters. So it is a line that you're trying to walk, and you can't figure that line out until you've attempted that line sometimes.
Yeah,
And
you essentially don't know where the line's at till you crossed it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the long and short of it. So we're doing a handful of tighter breedings than we've ever done this year, and they are to try and reproduce the dog you were specifically talking about. It's just Vex. So as you take, we're talking about a 10-generation pedigree, 2,046 dogs. As you cut that down to 400 unique ancestors that create that pedigree, or 350 unique ancestors, the gene pool is smaller, and with a smaller gene pool, what do you get? Less genes to pick from, more
Correct.
consistency.
Yep.
Okay. Now, if people think instantly, oh, there's problems. There are going to be special puppies coming out of this or whatever.
Yes, that's what people think.
Yes. So, but what you have is how clean are your lines? And if your lines are clean, you don't have problems. If your lines aren't clean, you're going to see them. So if you have lots of good things, you're going to see lots of good things. If you have lots of bad things, you're going to see lots of bad things.
And not even lots of bad things, but if you have some bad things,
They're
you're going to start
to
seeing more
populate.
of them.
Now,
Yes.
the last aspect of that is breeding past. So you pick the dogs that don't display the things. They no longer carry those genes that popped up in the other puppies. Now, granted, it's part of moving forward.
Yeah.
Have you heard of Bob Welly or Elhue pointers?
With English pointers.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Snakefoot. Have you read his book? This is one you should look into. I'm not really good at reading books, but I'm really good at recommending books be read.
Yeah, I can tell you this. You offer me a book to read, I'm going to say, we'll look into that.
Yeah, yep. So I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. Bob Welly created Elhue Kennels. Elhue is Welly backwards.
Yep.
And he did all of the things that nobody would ever dream of. Litter mates and moms to dads to dads.
All kinds of
and
things.
all the
Yep.
things, right? And he pushed past and created something that was very consistent, is very, 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 very well known from a name standpoint now, because he pushed past the things and created consistency. It's difficult to do. There are dogs that are going to not make the cut. There are dogs that are going to, not do it. There are a lot more dogs that are going to. But you need a combination of things. You need that line breeding to pull some consistency. You need the outcrosses, which would be not directly connected dogs, to strengthen genetics. That's that hybrid vigor, which is not true hybrid vigor because it's short hairs. You get more hybrid vigor from like crossing off breeds and things like that. It's even more strengthening. But you need to strengthen through outcrosses
Within your breed.
and then you need to pull line breedings to produce more consistent dogs, litters.
I'm going to tell you this.
Mm-hmm.
That is a lot of science.
Science.
Science. You guys, so with everything you guys said, you guys haven't jumped on board with you're the next generation of dog breeder yet. But I'm going to say it again because honestly, I have found you two to be very humble. You're two of the most humble people I've met. You're very kind. I haven't met a person that does not like you.
Keep looking. I'm sure you'll find somebody.
I'm not talking about, I'll say it, snowflakes out there that get upset about things that they shouldn't. I've told everybody I know, I'm telling an entire world today that I've been around world-class dog breeders. And when I mean world-class, I've paid the $1,500 to go to a seminar. I've gone to the world-class trainers. I've talked to them. I've experienced them. Through these world-class dog trainers, you guys, in my opinion, are above them. And let me explain. Your dogs come out as good or better. Your personalities are phenomenal. Anybody can talk to you. Anybody. You're humble, where a lot of these world-class dog trainers just stare at you and look at you. And when you're trying to communicate, they just won't talk to you. You take your information and you provide it literally to the entire world for free. And part of the reason you don't have time to answer your phone calls or your emails is because you're so kind. You're so generous. You're offering up what no one would before unless you paid for it. I have DVDs, cassettes upstairs of dog trainers that I had to pay X number of dollars to get the cassette, that I can go watch a equivalent or better presentation from you guys for free on YouTube. You are the next generation. Whether you want to take that and run with it or not, I will say I'm very pleased and happy to call you both friend, and also pleased and happy to call you guys true entrepreneurs, true people that love what you do, love your family. And folks out there, understand they have 2 little bitty boys. If they can't get back to you in 12 hours, get over it. They'll get with you. Okay. They are very consistent. They're very good. I've had the opportunity to watch your dogs in many situations. I've been out where I've seen a friend of mine bring a dog out, and the dog was out of control, and I specifically watched Ethan correct the dog politely, reassure the dog what it was doing was wrong, and within less than 2 minutes, I watched Ethan get that dog under control, take the situation and make it a positive situation instead of a negative situation that the owner didn't realize was happening, but Ethan knew it in like 5 seconds and fixed it. So we are at somewhere around 2 to 2.5 hour mark. I've really enjoyed the conversation. I've loved talking to you guys. This is the first time we've actually had to have the opportunity to have a conversation like this. I enjoyed it greatly. I hope to have you guys back on another time. I hope you enjoyed it. The other thing I want to throw out there is you guys do give to a lot of organizations. You guys give to Pheasants Forever. You touched on how you do that. You guys give back to the community as entrepreneurs in Kansas, actually, because you're on YouTube and all the other social networks, you're actually an entrepreneur for the world. Anybody in the world can see you, right? Anybody in the world can reach out to you. So you're the next generation. You really are, in my mind. So before we end the podcast with my normal closing, I'd like you guys to take the opportunity to share your contact information, how to get a hold of you, how to see if someone wants them to have you train their dog, if they're interested in a puppy, some of your equipment. One thing I will show real quick. Most of what you guys are going to get is audio, but I will be cutting some of these, and they will go to YouTube and Facebook and everything else. Ethan Cat was nice enough to give me this beautiful hat. It has a American flag, and where the stars are, there is a German short-hair pointer with stars inside of it. It's a beautiful hat, which you can find on their website. And also, they love me. They know I love America. There's the back of the shirt, and I believe Ethan is wearing this very shirt tonight.
He is.
There's the back in America. And there's the front of the shirt. You can get all this on their website, which I am 100% sure they will share to you. And if you are only getting the audio version, I strongly suggest you go out and check out their website. So here's your opportunity before we end the podcast.
So we absolutely enjoyed our time. You never know how a podcast is going to go until you're there.
Yes.
And this was a super easy to have conversation. It flowed so well. I would love, I don't know if Ethan wants to, but I'm pretty sure I'm speaking for him as well. We'd love to be back on and continue this conversation in the future. You can find us at standingstonekennels.com. All of our merchandise, as well as our training supplies and things that we actually use and recommend, just not a bunch of junk, is on standingstonesupply.com. You can find us on the social medias of YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and that's just all Standing Stone Kennels. Anything else I missed?
I think that's pretty much it.
So one last thing, Ethan, the bottle's half gone. What do you think?
It's pretty good bourbon.
It's pretty good bourbon. I agree. Barrel, bourbon, cask strength, 115 proof. Ethan and I sipped heavily. The one thing you got to realize is Ethan and Kat got here at about 5:30, and it is 9:30-ish. And so it's not like we're intoxicated in any form. We enjoyed sipping on the bourbon. It was quite good. And I really hope Kat enjoyed her.
I did. This is my 3.5.
3.5.
Of my mojitos.
Mojitos.
Yeah.
So, with everything being said, like I end every podcast, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Most importantly, please shop local. Support your local entrepreneurs. Support your local mom and pop shops. As I always tell you, when you support your mom and pop shops, you support that young boy going to baseball practice, softball practice, football practice, whatever he is into, and you support that young girl going to her softball sports practices, dance practices, whatever she goes to. So when you support local and you support your local businesses in the United States of America, you are supporting these mom and pops, these families to be able to provide for you. And just like Standing Stone Kennels, they are supporting their community through donating to Pheasants Forever, donating to their local community. And as long as you continue to support American-made, America will continue to be strong and continue to be vibrant as we are. So thank you very much for listening. Looking forward to seeing you again. Make sure you check out Standing Stone Kennel, Google them, and I have a funny feeling you'll find everything they do. They have over 100,000 followers. The guy with a pink gun, Standing Stone Kennels. Is there another one?
Cat the dog trainer.
Cat the dog trainer. There we go. I was trying
With
to
a
figure.
cat with
I
a
knew
K.
it was cat something.
With a K. That's
Cat
right.
with a K. So check it all out. I guarantee you will be happy. You're going to learn things you never knew. And I've been impressed. And I've been dog training for longer than they've been in business. And I've learned tremendous amounts from them. So you guys have a good evening. Look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.